It started with small refusals. Not the kind you notice the first time. They slip past you like bad weather you think will pass. I asked if she wanted dinner. She said she wasn't hungry. I asked again a few nights later. She smiled, polite, said she'd already eaten. Each time, the tone was gentle enough that I couldn't call it rejection, but sharp enough that I felt the line between us. It's funny how tone can close a door without making a sound. We'd been together 3 years, married for 2. She used to touch my arm when she passed me in the kitchen. That stopped around spring. I don't remember the last time she touched me without reason. When I noticed, I told myself not to. People drift, I thought. Work gets heavy. You get tired. But the quiet between us changed texture. It used to be soft, companionable. Now it hummed. Like something alive. At night I'd reach for her. She'd shift away, pretending to turn in her sleep. I'd stay still, staring at the ceiling. The fan would click every 7 seconds. I counted it one night to 7 seconds, click, 7 seconds, click. The sound settled into me like a pulse. I'd trace her outline under the blanket, careful not to touch her. I wanted to see if she'd notice, if her breathing would change. It didn't. Once, I whispered her name. She didn't answer. I think she was awake. I started asking more directly. Are we okay? She'd say yes, just tired, too much work. I asked if she wanted to go out somewhere. Maybe later, always later. I stopped asking. The silence was easier than the pretense. She spent more time on her phone. I watched the blue light reflect in her eyes long after midnight. I'd ask who she was texting. She'd say just friends. I didn't press. I wanted to, but pressing feels weak, and weakness shows. So I learned to observe instead. Observation feels cleaner than accusation. Once, she went out for drinks with coworkers. I stayed up until she came back. 2:30 in the morning. I heard her keys, the soft stumble into the hallway, the way she paused before turning the knob. Like she needed a breath to put her face back on. She saw me sitting there and smiled too quickly. You didn't have to wait up. I said I wasn't. I lied. She smelled like gin and someone else's cologne. I didn't say anything. I just watched her undress. She didn't look at me. The next morning, she made coffee. She never makes coffee for me anymore, only herself. But that morning she offered. I said no. The refusal came out colder than I meant. She nodded, said nothing. There was something fragile in her movement then, something almost apologetic. I thought maybe she'd come closer, maybe touch my shoulder again, the way she used to. She didn't. That evening, I asked if she wanted to go away for the weekend. Somewhere quiet. A cabin maybe. She said she couldn't, had too much work. I looked at her screen later that night when she went to shower. Her messages were open. A man's name I didn't know. Scrolling through, I saw fragments of "Miss this, remember that place, same as before." I didn't scroll further. I didn't need to. She came out wrapped in a towel, saw me by the window. I asked who he was. She said, "No one." I nodded. I think I smiled. She booked a trip the next week. Said she needed space, just a short vacation, somewhere warm. I asked if she was going alone. She said yes. Then she looked at me for the first time in a long while, held my eyes. "Don't worry," she said. It sounded rehearsed. I told her I wouldn't. When she left, the house felt wrong. The walls sounded thinner. I could hear neighbors through them. Things I'd never heard before: footsteps, laughter, the buzz of someone's TV. I tried to sleep in our bed but couldn't. I moved to the couch. Her side of the bed stayed untouched for the whole week. I told myself I was giving her time. That's what people do when they love each other, right? Give time, give space. But time is just air when no one's breathing it. She sent photos from the trip. Beaches, drinks, sunsets. None with her in them. I replied once, "Looks nice." She didn't answer. That's when the calls started. Dozens, missed, and answered. Texts piling up. "Why aren't you responding? Are you mad? Please answer." Then the tone shifted. "This is childish. You're scaring me. Say something." I didn't. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't know what to say. Every word felt contaminated. The last message came 3 days into her trip. "I'm with him. You were right. It's just a few days. Don't make this worse." I stared at it for a long time. Then I put the phone face down and went to wash the dishes. It was the quietest thing I could do. The next morning, she sent another, "We need to talk when I get back. Don't do anything stupid." I deleted it. I thought about what she said before leaving. Don't worry. The phrase stuck to me, repeated itself whenever I stopped moving. Don't worry. Don't worry. Like an instruction, or a dare. I wondered if she meant it as kindness or mockery. I couldn't tell anymore. That night, I drove to the grocery store just to be around sound. The hum of refrigerators, the beeping at the checkout, the low murmur of strangers. I walked the aisles without buying anything. I liked watching people choose things. There's something grounding about it, decisions that matter, but not too much. When I got home, I sat in the dark for a long time. The air felt different, still, but heavier somehow. I could smell her perfume on the scarf hanging by the door. I left it there. I didn't want to erase her, not yet. Each night after that, I'd sit on the edge of our bed and listen to the city outside. Somewhere, a dog barked, then stopped. Cars passed. The fan clicked every 7 seconds. I found comfort in the repetition. I tried to picture her not with him, just her, how she might look at that moment. Maybe on a balcony, a drink in her hand, phone face down beside her. I wondered if she felt any of what I felt, the weight of it, the slow sinking. When she finally called again, I let it ring out. She called 12 times, then stopped. I sat by the window and watched the empty streetlights flicker. The silence between rings was louder than the sound itself. Around midnight, I opened my laptop, typed out a few lines, deleted them, tried again, deleted again. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt true. What can you confess when you don't even know what you've done wrong? The night before she came back, I couldn't sleep. I lay on her side of the bed, breathing in the faint scent of her shampoo, and imagined what it would be like if she just never came home. Not in a tragic way, just gone, dissolved into the air like steam. No confrontation, no closure, just absence. There's a strange peace in that thought, a stillness I hadn't felt in weeks. I think I fell asleep like that, half dreaming, half watching the dark shift around me. When I woke, it was morning. The sunlight cut across the floor. For a moment, I thought I heard her in the kitchen, but it was just the fridge starting up. The hum sounded almost human. I sat up, checked my phone. No new messages. I stared at her last one again, the one that said, "Don't make this worse." It didn't sound like fear when I read it now. It sounded like guilt. Or maybe pity. Hard to tell. She came back that evening. I heard her key, the pause in the lock. She stepped in quietly, like someone entering a church. We looked at each other. She tried to speak, then didn't. There was salt on her skin from travel, her hair a little tangled from the wind. I could have said something, anything. Instead, I just nodded, walked past her, went to bed. She didn't follow. That night, I dreamed I was underwater. Everything was blue and slow. I could see her above me, reaching out, but the surface never came closer. When I woke, my throat was dry. The fan clicked every 7 seconds. I realized I was counting again. I think that was when the space between us stopped feeling temporary. It became its own thing, a kind of presence. She slept beside me, but it felt like someone else's body. Every move she made sounded deliberate, like she was trying to prove something. I stopped reaching for her. I stopped asking. I stopped reacting. The silence became easier than touch. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her eyes weren't angry, just searching, like she was trying to locate the man she used to know. I didn't help her find him. Maybe he was gone already. Maybe he'd been leaving quietly each night, the way I did when she turned me down. When I think back on it now, the strangest part isn't the rejection itself. It's how normal it all felt. How routine. People think betrayal comes with noise, with fights, with tears. But it doesn't. It comes in half smiles, postponed plans, the slow fading of warmth in a room. It comes in the click of a fan, every 7 seconds, until that's the only sound you can hear. After she came back, things didn't go back. They just flattened out. We didn't fight, didn't talk much either. A truce built out of exhaustion. She started sleeping earlier, or pretended to. I could tell from her breathing when she was awake. Sometimes she'd unlock her phone under the blanket. The blue glow touched the wall, faint but visible. I stopped asking who she was talking to. Curiosity had turned into something else, quieter, heavier. It wasn't about knowing anymore. It was about understanding what it meant. I started waking up before her. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't sleep. I'd lie still and listen. The house had its own rhythm and pipes, floorboards, the hum of appliances. Her breathing mixed into it like another instrument. I could tell the exact second she'd stir. There was always this small sign before she opened her eyes. Not tired, just resigned. She'd stay still for a while, then reach for her phone. Same motion every morning. Left hand, slight twist of the wrist, thumb unlocking the screen. I started timing it. 6:41 a.m., 6:42, sometimes 6:39 on weekends. Patterns make things easier to bear. She'd shower for exactly 11 minutes. Always started the kettle before she went in, so it would boil by the time she came out. Coffee, 2 spoons of sugar, same chipmunk. She'd stand by the window while drinking it, hurling through something, sometimes smiling. Never at me. I'd watch from the hallway, not hiding, just quiet. She never turned her own. At first I thought I was doing it because I missed her. But missing someone is active. This felt passive, like gravity. I didn't choose to notice, I just did. I noticed when she changed her perfume. I noticed the new lock screen photo, a beach I didn't recognize. I noticed when she started checking the door twice before leaving for work, like she was making sure it was really closed. That one stuck with me. I started keeping a small notebook. Not a journal, not like that. Just times, gestures, fragments. When she came home, when she left, how often she touched her hair, when she lied 3 times per sentence, on average. I didn't write to accuse her. I wrote to keep the days from blurring together. There's a comfort in order. Chaos makes you imagine things that aren't there. Order shows you what's real. She began staying out later again. Always had an excuse: overtime, traffic, dinner with coworkers. I didn't argue. I just wrote it down. 9:47 p.m. arrival. Red wine on breath. Laughter under apology. No guilt. Sometimes she'd kiss my cheek when she came in, like she remembered it was expected. I'd let her. Her lips were dry. The first real shift came one Saturday. She said she was going to yoga. I watched from the window after she left. She walked past her usual turn, different direction. I followed a few minutes later. Not close, just enough to keep her in sight. She wasn't heading to the studio. She met someone by the corner store. Same man from the messages. I could tell from his posture, the easy way he touched her shoulder. She looked lighter with him. That bothered me less than I thought it would. It was the lightness, how easy it was for her to remove the weight. She left with me. They talked for a while, then left in his car. I stood there until they disappeared. When I came back, the apartment smelled empty, like dust and fabric softener. I sat on the couch, looked at the kettle she hadn't used, the mug still clean, everything still in its place. That's what I liked about the apartment. Nothing moved unless I moved it. Later, I saw a new message on her tablet. A photo of them together. I didn't open it, just saw the thumbnail. A hotel balcony, ocean behind them, her hair blowing in the wind. She looked like she used to look when she laughed at my jokes. That's what I remember most, the shape of her mouth mid-laugh. That night, she came home smelling of salt and something else, maybe sunscreen. She didn't notice I was awake. I watched her undress in the dark, the way her shoulders tensed like she was expecting to be caught. I thought of saying something, maybe her name. Instead, I closed my eyes. Sometimes silence can be a mirror. People show themselves in it. After that, I started keeping track of smaller things. How often she refilled the soap dispenser. Which drawers she used for her new clothes. How long she paused before answering questions. The pauses got longer. The lies got cleaner. She was learning. I admired that. There's something elegant about a lie well told. It means someone cared enough to practice. The days blurred again. I worked less, started staying home. She didn't seem to mind. Maybe she thought I was depressed. She started leaving food for me in the fridge. Little acts of care that meant nothing. I'd throw them out after she left. I liked the control of that. Choosing what stayed and what didn't. At night, I'd watch her sleep. Not in a cruel way. Just watching. Trying to see what she looked like when she wasn't performing. Her face softened then, the lines around her mouth gone. Sometimes she'd twitch, murmur something. Once she said a name that wasn't mine. I didn't move, just watched her lips shape it. I installed a small camera in the living room, hidden inside an old router that didn't work anymore. It wasn't about catching her. I just wanted to see the in-between moments. The way she moved when no one was watching. People are truest then. The footage was boring mostly. She'd come home, drop her bag, sit on the couch, scroll her phone. Sometimes she'd stare at the window, blankly, like she forgot where she was. I'd watch her like that for hours. It felt almost intimate, the kind of closeness that doesn't need acknowledgement. One evening, I noticed something new. She paused by the door, hand on the knob, not turning it yet. She stood there for 30 seconds, then turned around, scanned the room, like she felt eyes on her. I froze watching it later, feeling the delay between her world and mine. When she finally left, I replayed it 3 times. That was the first time I realized she was starting to sense it imbalance, the quiet weight in the air. She started locking her phone with a password, then her laptop. Small defenses. I didn't try to break them. Didn't need to. The patterns told me enough. Patterns are faithful when people aren't. Every deviation means something. The skipped kettle, the earlier wake up, the longer showers. Signals, all of them. You just have to listen right. There's a strange clarity that comes when obsession stops feeling like obsession. It becomes routine. I didn't feel jealous anymore. I felt calm, focused. Watching her was like watching the weather. You can't argue with rain. You just observe. Record, predict. She went on another trip in July. Said it was for work. I didn't ask where. She hesitated when she said goodbye, like she was expecting a reaction. I didn't give her one. When the door closed, I felt relief more than anger. The silence was complete again, clean. I walked through the apartment, touched her things, arranged them neatly. There's comfort in order. That night, I replayed the footage from the week before she left, looking for something. I don't know what. Maybe a sign she was going to tell me. There wasn't, just ordinary gestures. Pouring coffee, checking her reflection, tying her hair. The normalcy of it was almost violent. The absence of meaning becomes its own kind of message. When she texted from the airport, I didn't reply. She called once. I let it ring. I watched the red dot blink on the camera, still recording, still seeing what I'd seen. Except now there was nothing left to watch. I realized then that I'd been waiting for something that would never come to an explanation. A confession, maybe just her looking at me and saying, I know, but silence was her answer. After that, I stopped watching the live feed. I'd let it record and check later. Most days there was nothing. A shadow passing from the window, a bird hitting the glass, dust moving through the light. I liked those moments best. Things happening without anyone to notice. It made the apartment feel alive again. When she came back, she looked different. Not happier, just quieter. As if she'd left something behind, or buried it. She avoided my eyes more. Talked less. Started wearing her hair differently. I marked that down. I wasn't sure if it meant anything yet. Maybe it didn't. Not everything does. One evening, she caught me watching her reflection in the TV screen. We weren't saying anything, just sitting. She looked at me through the glass and said, "What?" I said nothing. She stared a moment longer, then turned away. The silence after felt colder than usual. I kept thinking about that reflection. How we looked side by side, not touching, not speaking, but trapped in the same frame. Like two ghosts haunting a memory. Maybe that's what marriage becomes in the end, a habit of staying visible to each other long after the meaning's gone. The next few weeks passed without incident. She kept her routines. I kept mine. Watching, recording, adjusting. Sometimes I'd catch myself imagining her thoughts, narrating her movements in my head. She picks up the mug. She checks the lock twice. She hesitates before leaving, like I was writing her story for her. Once she couldn't read. I started sleeping better. There was a steadiness to it now, a rhythm I could rely on. The fan still clicked every 7 seconds. That sound became like breathing. Familiar, reassuring. Every click meant the world was still turning, still under control. One night, she stayed out late again. I sat by the window, lights off, watching the street. Her shadow appeared before she did, elongated by the streetlight, wavering. She stopped by the door again, same pause. I thought she might turn around. She didn't. When she came in, I pretended to be asleep. She stood over me for a long time. I could feel her watching. She woke up before dawn one morning. I could tell by the way the sheets shifted. Usually she'd lie there until the alarm, but this time she sat up quietly, swung her legs over the side of the bed, and just sat. I didn't move. I kept my breathing slow, steady. She stared at the wall for a long time. Then she stood and walked out. I heard the kettle, the clink of a cup, the familiar scrape of the chair against the kitchen floor. The same sounds that had filled every morning of our life together, except they felt distant now, like hearing a memory replayed through thin walls. I waited until she came back. She looked at me as if trying to guess whether I was awake. Her eyes lingered on my face, uncertain. Then she turned away. I don't think she knew I was watching. In those days, she moved differently. Careful, deliberate. She checked locks twice, windows too, left lights on in rooms she wasn't using. Sometimes she'd pause mid-task, like she'd forgotten what she was doing. Once, she stood in front of the mirror for 10 minutes, just staring at her reflection. I watched from the hallway. Her face was blank, like she was trying to remember how to look normal. I didn't interfere. I hadn't interfered for a long time. Watching had become enough. Observation replaced everything else. Touch, each emotion. She quit going out as much. Stopped meeting him, or if she did, she hid it better. I didn't look for proof anymore. The proof was irrelevant. People think betrayal needs confirmation. It doesn't. You know at the moment silence becomes heavier than words. Still, I'd see her eyes drift toward the door sometimes, that faint flicker of thought, the instinct to run. Then she'd catch herself, smile faintly, and sit back down, like someone learning to live with an invisible weight. I spent my time in small routines. Cleaning, sorting, watching. The footage played in the background even when I wasn't paying attention. The camera had become part of the room, like furniture. I didn't even need to check it anymore. Just knowing it was there was enough. There's a calm that comes from surveillance or from knowing every variable, every angle. It's not control exactly, more like surrender with precision. One night, I woke and she wasn't beside me. The clock said to 14 a.m. I lay still, listening. The house was silent. I got up and went to the living room. She was sitting on the couch, phone in her hand, screen dark. Her face turned toward the window. I said her name softly. She flinched, turned to me, startled. I couldn't sleep, she said. I nodded, sat down across from her. We didn't speak again. After a while she went back to bed. I stayed there, staring at the spot where she'd been sitting. The cushion still held the shape of her body. The next morning, she was distant again. No coffee, no small talk. She dressed quickly and left for work early. The silence after the door shut was absolute. I stood in the middle of the room and listened to the echo of her steps fade. I realized I couldn't remember the sound of her laughter anymore. Not the real one, just the practiced version she used around other people. The real one had vanished months ago, maybe years. I wondered when I stopped deserving to hear it. By then, even my thoughts had started moving in patterns. I'd wake, watch her, note the changes, the pauses, the deviations. Every day she seemed to lose a little more of herself. The smile tightened, the voice dimmed. She'd start sentences and abandon them halfway. Her eyes darted to corners, to shadows. Once she asked if I'd moved something on the table. I hadn't, or maybe I had. I couldn't remember. Things shifted on their own sometimes. Objects drifted without cause, like the air itself was rearranging us. I stopped sleeping at night. It was easier to watch her rest than to dream. Dreams were unreliable. She looked peaceful when she slept, though it wasn't real peace. More like exhaustion, the kind that comes from pretending all day. Sometimes she'd stir suddenly, sit up, look around as if expecting someone else in the room, then lie back down. The fear had settled in her, now quiet, constant. I hadn't given it to her directly. I just stopped taking it from her. One evening, I found her standing by the bedroom window, holding her phone to her ear but not speaking, listening. When she noticed me, she dropped her hand quickly. Bad signal, she said. I didn't answer. She looked small then, and certain, her shoulders drawn in. That's when I realized she didn't know what she was afraid of. The not knowing was what hollowed her out. It was never about guilt or punishment. It was about symmetry. She had made me invisible first. I had simply returned the gesture. The next morning, she woke with dark circles under her eyes. Didn't say much. Her hands shook when she poured her coffee. She spilled a little on the counter, didn't clean it up. I watched the drip slide slowly down the cabinet. The stain stayed there all day, dried into a faint mark. By evening, she'd gone to bed early again. I sat alone in the living room, the light from the TV flickering across the walls. The camera's red dot blinked steadily. I watched both screens at once, hers and mine. Reality folding in on itself. She started calling her sister more often, whispering from the balcony, her voice low. I couldn't make out words, but the tone carried. Tremor beneath the calm. One night she said, "I don't know what's wrong with me." Then silence. I turned off the volume. I didn't want to hear the rest. The words were to final. Time became elastic. Days stretched, nights collapsed. I stopped recording notes. There was nothing new to write. The pattern had completed itself. Every motion predictable, every silence accounted for. She existed now in small, repetitive gestures, flocking, checking, sighing. I existed in the space between those gestures, watching, waiting, breathing in rhythm with the fan's click. One night, she woke suddenly and said, "Did you hear that?" I said no. She turned on the light, looked around. Her eyes stopped on the corner of the room, where the old router sat. The one with the camera. She stared at it for a long time. Then at me. "What is that?" she asked. I said nothing. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Turned the light off. Lay back down. Her breathing stayed uneven for a long time. I didn't move. I don't think she slept again that night. After that, she started spending less time at home. Stayed late at work. Went to her sister's on weekends. Each absence stretched longer than the last. I didn't stop her. I just adjusted. The house was quieter now, easier to maintain. The air felt clean again, and touched. The stillness was soothing. I found I didn't miss her when she was gone. I only missed the version of her that existed before she learned to be careful. Eventually, she stopped staying overnight. Said she needed space. She didn't ask me to leave. Just didn't come back. At first she'd send short messages, "I'm fine, need time." Then even those stopped. I didn't try to contact her. Silence is a form of communication too. The truest one. Weeks passed. The apartment stayed orderly. Her things remained where she left them, clothes, books, toothbrush. I didn't touch any of it. Dust gathered naturally, settling into a soft film. The air took on a different weight, one that belonged only to me. I realized I'd stopped checking the camera entirely. There was no need. The house didn't move anymore. Then one morning, I saw her through the window across the street. She was standing outside her sister's building, looking at her phone. She looked thinner, different, her hair tied back in a way she never used to wear it. She glanced around, briefly, as if sensing something. Her eyes brushed the direction of my window. I stayed still. She didn't see me. After a few seconds, she turned and went inside. That small movement of the turn felt like closure. Not forgiveness, not regret, just finality. The nights after that were long, but not restless. I'd sit by the window, the glow of the streetlight steady against the glass. The world outside moved at its own pace, cars passing, a neighbor smoking, a dog barking somewhere unseen. I didn't feel alone. I felt balanced. The tension that had stretched through those months had finally gone slack. Sometimes, late at night, I imagine her waking up in that new apartment. The faint sound of pipes, the creak of unfamiliar floorboards. She'll pause, hold her breath, certain she heard something. A shift in the air, a memory. Maybe she'll call my name once, softly, then laugh at herself. Go back to bed. But the stillness won't feel the same anymore. It will press against her, gentle but constant, like a pulse she can't locate. She'll start checking the door twice, the window latch, the corners. Not fear exactly, just awareness. And I'll be here, awake, watching nothing. The house will hum quietly around me. The fan will click every 7 seconds. The same sound it's always made. Regular, reliable. Proof that everything remains in motion, even when nothing changes. People say silence is absence. They're wrong. Silence is presence. It's everything that stays after the words have gone. I don't plan to see her again. There's nothing left to say, and saying would only break what's finally whole. She'll keep living. I'll keep watching the same shadows cross the same walls. The air between us will hold. Sometimes I scroll back through old footage of small, ordinary moments. Her making coffee, laughing into her phone, turning off the lights. I play them without sound, like home movies. They calm me, remind me that peace doesn't come from forgiveness, or even understanding. It comes from stillness, from knowing that somewhere, she's awake in the dark, listening for a sound that will never come. And that I'm here, listening too. Nothing ends loudly. It just settles. That's the part no one tells you. The quiet is the point.